Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to Fucked If I Know the podcast. Today we are talking about relationships, which is something that I haven't spoken to you guys about a lot. But I had a request for a relationship podcast. And if you guys shoot me a message on Instagram and ask for a topic, then that's fucking brilliant because I very often record podcasts for you guys specifically. But I have had a request in regards to calling in your dream person and how you go about that and what I did to call in my partner Billy. How I kind of processed going through a long-term relationship breakup and all of the things there. So I thought, fuck it, now is the time to share with you guys what I did to manifest my dream man. So for those of you who don't know, before I met Billy, when I lived in Australia, I was in a long-term relationship for 6 years and it was a really great relationship. Everything was cool. We got along like a house on fire and most things were pretty aligned, but I really wanted to move overseas and he really didn't, in a nutshell. I went overseas for my best friend's wedding and I just had this huge kind of mental revelation at that time that I really wanted to move overseas and he didn't want to go, and it was enough of a value for me, a strong enough value for me to want to end the relationship if he wasn't prepared to compromise and just try it. So obviously there's a lot more to that. There is so much into that story, but there's a few podcasts back I speak about that in depth. But basically, you know, we did end up ending the relationship and I moved overseas. I'd always wanted to do it ever since I was 16 years old, and it came to a point where it was a big enough value in my relationship that I thought, I don't want to get to 80 years old and look back on my life and wish that I had done it. And a lot of my friends were doing it as well, and I was just hella jealous because it was something that I'd always dreamed of, and I thought, I'm never going to get the chance to do it. So I did very painfully rip that band-aid and break that relationship off, and it was really fucking hard, guys. Like, when I do share this story, I always remind people that it wasn't an easy decision for me to make. It was very, very difficult. It was hard for obviously both of us. It was hard for my family, for their family, because we had such a close relationship as well. But at the end of the day, you know, to summarize all of that pain, I had to do what was right for me. And at the end of the day, you have to do what's right for you as well. You are the only person you have to answer to at the end of your life, right? On your deathbed, the only person left is you. And do you want to look back on your life and wish that you had done differently? So I'm not going to be the person to tell you to break up with your partner, but if things are not in alignment anymore, if they are not energetically aligned, if you are compromising a huge part of who you are to be with somebody, then I mean, you know what my opinion is, but I know it's easier said than done, but I have done it before. So if you ever need to chat to somebody about that, then just hit up my Instagram DMs because I know how difficult and lonely that can be. But anyway, let's flash forward to then calling in my dream partner, right? So something really hilarious is that when I was calling in my dream partner, I sat down and I wrote a list of the attributes that I wanted them to have. So not just physical attributes, but personality traits and how I wanted to feel when I was with that partner. That was the most important bit. Because I had seen so blatantly what I didn't want in a relationship, it was very easy for me to look at what it was I really wanted to call in. And that big one was happy to move overseas or already lives overseas where I want to go, which was United Kingdom. So a huge value on that list was happy to travel because I was just sick of having this fight over something that meant so much to me. Travel's been in my life since I was 13. I've traveled solo for my whole life. Even when I was little, I used to fly to Perth to see my dad by myself, as an 8-year-old. So I've literally done it forever. So it was such a huge value to me. Another value was that I wanted them to be open to me having a really crazy career, one that was a bit inconsistent, a bit wild, a bit all over the shop, and them to support me through that, and just to support me through it and just believe in me and be my number one fucking fan. That was huge. I also, when I was manifesting Billy into my life, I wrote down that I wanted them to be a mixture of Babish from Binging with Babish, the YouTube series. And if you go and look up with the guy from Binging with Babish, Billy looks exactly like him, which is very bizarre because I wasn't into the baldies until I met Billy, and he's a bald-headed man and he's just gorgeous. So it was really funny that I put this element. But also Babish obviously cooks. Binging with Babish is a cooking show and Billy loves to cook, so I didn't even write that down, but I fucking hate cooking, so it was amazing that he came into my life. And so a mixture of binging with Babish and the guy from 50 Shades of Grey. And I'm just like really hoping that my family aren't listening to this right now, because I wanted a spicy boyfriend. But I also wanted somebody who was good with their money, and didn't have a problem talking about money, because I love talking about money. I love talking about positive money mindset. I love having money. I love sharing money. I love spending money. I think it's a really beautiful energy in the right hand. So I really wanted somebody, and that character represented somebody who was good with their money, and smart with it and stuff as well. And so it's pretty crazy, because that's literally who I called in. Now, there were other things on that list, like likes to slow dance with me in the kitchen, likes to go on adventures with me, takes care of themselves, goes to the gym, doesn't have to be like hella fit, but just takes care of themselves, and a bunch of other things. I have to find that list somewhere one day. But when I met Billy, I met him on Tinder, and I never expected to meet my dream man on Tinder. That is not how the Disney cartoons told me it would happen. And that's a huge fucking whole topic, isn't it, around how Disney and films have influenced the way that we think relationships should start and the way that they should look. But I was really adamant that there was no way that I was going to meet my person on Tinder. I was like, no, I have to meet them in person. We have to have some crazy meeting story. And FYI, I met a couple of guys in between my long-term relationship and Billy, and we did have a crazy meeting story, and that fucking went to absolute shit, did not work out. So sometimes a crazy meeting story is not always a good indicator of how the relationship will turn out. Not that it won't, not to say that it won't, that was just my experience. But I really was adamant that I wasn't going to meet somebody on Tinder. And I was actively blocking the possibility of meeting somebody by being really strict on this, and be like, no, I have to meet them organically. It has to happen in person. And my coach at the time, kind of called me out and was like, what's the big deal? Like, why are you resisting this so much? And I had this whole story in my head around I have to meet them in person. He said, why don't you just change your energy, shift up the focus on what you're trying to call in on that space, and just fucking give it a try. And I was like, all right. So I moved up to Edinburgh, and I didn't know anybody in this city. I had a couple of housemates, but I didn't know anybody. So my intention when I went on Tinder and what's the other one? Hinge, went on Tinder and Hinge, was to meet people, to go out for drinks, to see my city, to feel a bit in my feminine and be treated, because I love to be treated. Who doesn't, ladies? We love to be treated. And I just really wanted to connect with people. And when I saw Billy on Tinder, saw that he was a creative person as well, I initially was a bit like, nah, because I had never had a creative partner before. And from what I had experienced with other creative men, it was like a bit wanky, right? Bit up themselves. I was like, nah, not for me. And when Billy and I first started chatting as well, he was actually a bit cocky, a little bit up himself. And I was like, you know what, this guy seems like a bit of a dickhead, but he seems cool as well, and he seems quite cool. He's a bit good looking. So we'll go out for this date. And anyway, lo and behold, we own a house together. I live in Scotland with him. I moved across the world to live with him after the pandemic, a whole story there, and here we are. But the thing that I want to talk to you guys about when you are wanting to manifest your own dream partner into your life is that you need to focus on yourself first. And you need to get really fucking clear on what your values are and what your boundaries are and what you stand for first. Because if you do not know what you stand for, and if you do not know what your boundaries and values are, you're not going to be able to identify red flags for you when you do meet people. You're going to meet anyone and everyone. You're going to invite them into your life, and they're going to step on some toes or trigger you or push past a boundary. And if you're not clear on what those things look like, then you're not going to know how to call them out. You're not going to actively stop those people. You're actually going to be like an open magnet for all of these crazy people to come into your life that aren't a fucking vibe. So the first thing that I really did when I was ready to call somebody in was work on myself first. I really got clear on like, what were my values? What did I want in a partner? And how did I want to feel in the relationship? Not just all about them, because let's not forget, it's a two-person relationship. Like, it's not just about them, it's about you too. How do you want to feel in your relationship? How do you want that experience? What do you want that experience to look like? Do you want to feel liberated? Do you want to feel free? Do you want to feel excited? Do you want to feel treated? Do you want to feel in your feminine? Do you want to feel like you can co-create together? What is it? What would you like to feel in your relationship? And this is one of the most important things, because if you start to go, I want to feel independent, but still, in relationship, I want to feel surprised and delighted, I want to feel spontaneous, I want to feel whatever, you need to start embodying those things in yourself now, sans partner, without the partner, male, female, whatever, without that other person. You need to understand how you want to feel, and you need to go and do that. So from a manifestation point of view and an energy point of view, we know that energy attracts energy, like attracts like. So if we're sitting here saying, I want to be independent in my relationship, and I want to be this and I want to be that, and you're actively not embodying those values and those feelings now, you are not an energetic match for that person. In fact, you're just going to call in people that are literally the opposite. You'll call in clingy people, you'll call in jealous people, you'll call in boring people, you'll call in people who aren't motivated, they're not inspired. You're literally going to call in whatever energy that you are exuding out into the universe. And that comes to that whole desperation thing too. People always say, and it's the most infuriating thing, you'll find someone when you're not looking. And I know it's so fucking annoying to hear, but it is so true. Any manifestation, when you release your attachment to it and just focus on feeling good, that's when people come through. That's when the dates happen. That's when you're a magnet, a literal magnet for people. So I really want you to focus on the feeling for yourself. What is it that you do that makes you feel spontaneous? What is it that you do that makes you feel independent? What is it that you do that makes you feel loved? What is it that makes you feel spoiled? And really get fucking crystal clear on that, and then start doing that shit. If your dream partner takes you on spontaneous dates, take yourself on a spontaneous date, or take your bestie on a spontaneous date. If your dream partner buys you flowers, buy yourself the damn flowers, right? Start embodying those values now, so you set that standard. You set that boundary for yourself, and you set your expectations. So when somebody comes into your life, you've got something to match it to as well, right? You can go, all right, do they make me feel supported, loved, sexy, whatever? No? Cool. Not a fucking vibe. Next, right? Let them out of your life. Let them go. So I really want you to focus on that feeling and starting to embody that feeling straight away. That's the first step, is that. The second thing I want you to do is focus on any resistance or any blocks that you have around how you're going to meet this person, how and when. So if you are the kind of person who really idolizes rom-coms and they're fucking brilliant, they're great, but they do nothing for our actual relationships because they're movies, guys, they're not true, is starting to think of any blocks or resistances you have around how or when you're going to meet this person. Are you getting too specific on what they must, they're a lawyer, they're 5'3" and they earn this much money. You can have ideas about what you want this person to embody, more of an energy and a feeling thing, but are you being too restrictive? Are you being too restrictive around how you're going to meet them, when you're going to meet them? Because that is a massive energy killer. It doesn't give the universe any chance to get spontaneous with how they deliver this human to your life. You really just need to trust and have faith that when they're meant to drop in, they're meant to drop in. And somebody told me the best thing. So when I was after the long-term breakup and then had my heart broken by another boy before I met Billy, I went and had my birth chart read. And I said to the lady, she said, do you want to know anything? I'm like, am I destined to be alone forever? Am I going to die alone? And she said to me, girl, first of all, in your natal chart, relationships are a huge part of how you grow. And just based off literally just us talking, if you have the desire for a relationship, then a relationship will come to you. You're not going to die alone. Because I have the desire for it, and because I love being in relationships and I grow the most in relationships, why would the universe not give me one? Right? It doesn't work that way. The universe doesn't give you a passion or a desire or an interest or something that you really want. It doesn't put that in your brain as a desire and then not give it to you. It doesn't work like it's not trying to punish you. The universe is not trying to fucking punish you. So I just want you to remember that. That if you want a relationship, you're not going to die alone. Relax, take a deep breath. It's going to be okay. And just trust in the timing of your life. If the man or woman or whoever hasn't shown up yet, it's cool. Don't worry about it. Take your focus off it and go do something else instead. Go have fun. Go work on enhancing your own fucking life. Take the swing dancing class or the pole dancing class. Go get your hair dyed and chop it off. Go travel independently. Go do the things that light you the fuck up. Because the more you focus on yourself, the more independent that you are, or not even independent, but the more you just work on enhancing your own life, the more of a magnet you are for the right fucking people too. And you then also set a standard standard for yourself of, I love my life so fucking much that it's really going to take the right person to come in for me to make room for them. And that's how it should be. And that's how it was with Billy. I had created a life that I absolutely fucking loved. I was traveling whenever I wanted to. I was living in a city that I adored. I'm still doing these things. I was doing a job that lit me up, and I was just going about my life, and he needed to fit into that and I needed to fit into his, and we just fit literally like a jigsaw puzzle. Now, not to say that we didn't have to work, and we still work in our relationship, and we definitely still have blocks and past shit that comes up in our own relationship. We spent 6 months apart because of a pandemic. Like, a whole bunch of stuff's happened. So I don't want to romanticize it. It's just like this perfect relationship. But from a value point of view, we rarely argue about the really fucking important shit because we are on the same page. And the only way we got on the same page was because only way we knew we were on the same page was because before I met him, I really worked on what was the most important for me, and I went out and sought it, and I didn't let anything else compromise on that. This is a huge thing. If you are someone who's been in a long-term relationship, you'll know this very strongly, that if you have compromised for a really fucking long time, it's really obvious to you when somebody doesn't fit your new version of yourself, right? It's really, really obvious, and you're way less likely to compromise because you've been there before and you're like, fuck that shit. Like, I'm not going to sit in another 6-year relationship doing shit I don't want just to keep somebody else happy. And at the end of the day as well, guys, if you are an energetic mismatch for somebody, if your values are misaligned and you're just going along with it for the sake of it because it's easier to go along with something than it is to have the audacity and confidence to go, you know what, this isn't working, you're doing a disservice not just to you, but to that person as well, because you are not a match. You're not going to fit, and it's better to rip the Band-Aid off earlier if you realize that there's some red flags and you're like, you know what, this really compromises on a massive value of mine. At some point the bubble will burst and shit will hit the fan, and wouldn't you rather that like happen really, really early so it's a little bubble and a little shit in the fan rather than something fucking enormous? Like, do the other person a solid as well and have the audacity to go, you know what, I don't think that we're an energetic match. So there's obviously so much that could be said about relationships, but if you're someone who's just trying to get back out there at the moment, the two biggest things that I can tell you is don't cockblock the universe, in the sense of don't tell it how you have to meet this person. Be open to meeting them online, be open to meeting them at places, be open to meeting them wherever the universe decides to deliver them to you, and to get really crystal clear on what your values are and what's important to you, and don't fucking compromise on it. Don't compromise on it. There are plenty more fish in the sea. There are plenty more people out there who will be that right match for you. And every time you say no and every time you assert a boundary, you get clearer and clearer on the right person for you. And one day you'll be in this relationship and you'll look back and go, fuck, I'm so glad it didn't work out with that person. And you'll understand why it never worked out with somebody before. And I love that line so much. Like, you know, eventually you're with somebody and you'll understand why it never worked with anyone before. And also, I just want to say that can take some time in your relationship too. Like, I think the whole love at first sight is a massive crock of shit. I think that trusting in sparks is a whole crock of shit as well. Like, oh my God, we had this amazing spark. I actually read somewhere that having that is a red flag response of your body being like, not a good vibe, hun. When you are with the right person, I honestly believe that things should feel quite neutral. Borderline boring, to be honest. Like, they're still amazing, great fun and stuff, but there's no fucking games. There's no arguments over dumb shit. There's no, he texted me an hour ago, should I text him an hour later? It should just be quite easy. It should be easy. It shouldn't be a game. It shouldn't be a fight. It shouldn't be any of this fucking mad shit that you see in movies and TV shows. Guys, TV and movies would be so boring if relationships were like neutral and easy. They would be so fucking boring, we wouldn't watch them. There's a reason why they're chaotic. And it has done, like, TV and stuff has done a massive disservice to our opinion and our expectations of relationships. But I just want you to remember that that's all like fiction. It's not fucking real. And yeah, it can feel, when you meet somebody and you click and your values click and you're not compromising, it can sometimes feel a bit like, I hate the word boring because it's not, but it is kind of boring. It feels neutral. It just feels easy. And you're like, oh, well, this makes sense. And some people do have that crazy, like, oh my God, he's the one, it's amazing, and it works out. But from previous experience, every time I've had this feeling, it hasn't worked out. Every time I've been like, holy fuck, he's the one. And every time I've got really anxious and nervous around them and like, don't act like myself, he's been not the one, hun. He's been not the one. So I just want you to to remember that as well. I just want to end this podcast as well with a really great recommendation, which is the book Higher Love by Jordana Levin. Everyone I have recommended this book to has absolutely loved it. She is a queen. The book is phenomenal, and I really do recommend it if you are looking for love. But I hope this podcast has given you a bit of insight as to how I called my man in, and more importantly, how I worked on myself first and how I got myself to a place where I was really happy with me before I welcomed somebody into my life. I do really hope it helps. But if you have any questions or any follow-up things that you need me to clarify on another podcast, hit me up. I don't speak about relationships very often, and this is mainly, what it's my experience in this domain. But I do hope you've at least taken something away from listening today. Sending you lots of love. A reminder, you will not die alone. Don't worry. You are destined for love. You will find your person, and it will all make sense. And you'll remember this podcast and you'll be like, oh my God, Gabby was right. So yes, thank you so much for listening, guys. I hope you have a lovely day, night, and week wherever you are, and I'll speak to you soon.